Pep Guardiola was once football's untouchable genius.
Nico, Vini, Dino, Gundo, you pass the ball to find that. You pass the ball because they jump. And when they jump, the space is get.
The man who turned Barcelona into artists.
Sergio Ramos. Touré ya. Iniesta para Xavi. Xavi para Touré. Tiene abierto a Leo.
Bayern into machines, and Manchester City into unstoppable champions. Today, he's making schoolboy errors that would embarrass Sunday League managers. The tactical mastermind who revolutionized football is now its most spectacular failure. 6 new signings, $250 million spent, and somehow the nightmare has only gotten worse. So, how did the greatest manager of all time become football's most beautiful disaster? This is the complete story of Pep Guardiola's struggles to rise again. To understand Pep Guardiola's spectacular fall, we have to go back to where the legend was born, with a young player who caught the eye of the most revolutionary coach football had ever seen. Barcelona 1990, Johan Cruyff's dream team was taking shape, and tucked away in their midfield was a scrawny kid named Josep Guardiola. He wasn't the fastest, wasn't the strongest, but he had something else, a football brain that could read the game 3 moves ahead. Under Cruyff's guidance, Pep learned that football wasn't just about winning, it was about how you won. By the time he hung up his boots in 2001, Guardiola had tasted everything. Champions League glory, 4 straight La Liga titles, the captain's armband at the greatest club in the world. But retirement? That was never the plan. 2008, Barcelona were in crisis, trophyless and directionless. The board made a gamble that would change football forever. They handed the keys to their former midfielder. What happened next was pure magic. In his first season, Guardiola's Barcelona didn't just win the treble, they reinvented the beautiful game. Tiki-taka became poetry in motion. Lionel Messi evolved from promising youngster to unstoppable force. They won 14 trophies in 4 seasons and made football look like art. Bayern Munich came calling in 2013, 3 Bundesliga titles in 3 years. Then Manchester City in 2016, where Pep would build his masterpiece. The Centurions, the treble, 6 Premier League titles in 7 years. He turned Manchester City from noisy neighbors into the most dominant force English football had ever seen. By 2023, he wasn't just a manager, he was football's closest thing to a god. But gods, as history teaches us, can fall, and when they do, the crash is always spectacular. What nobody could have predicted was just how spectacular Pep Guardiola's fall would be. August 2024, Wembley Stadium, the Community Shield, Manchester City versus Manchester United. On paper, it should have been routine. City had won 7 of the last 8 Premier League titles. United were, well, united. But something was different. City scraped through on penalties after a 1-1 draw, and Pep's post-match reaction was telling. We were closer to losing than winning. The warning signs were there, but nobody was paying attention. For the first 13 games of the season, the winning machine kept rolling. 10 wins, 3 draws, unbeaten. Classic City, classic Pep. But if you looked closer, really looked, the cracks were already showing. The defense that once conceded 0.7 goals per game was suddenly shipping 1.3, nearly twice as bad as any Pep side in history. Even with Rodri on the pitch, they looked vulnerable, fragile, human. September 22nd, 2024. Arsenal away. The match everyone remembers for Haaland's meltdown and his confrontation with Gabriel Jesus. What they don't remember is that this was the first time you could see the fear in Pep's eyes. 1 week later, it happened. Rodri, the metronome of Manchester City, the player Pep himself called irreplaceable, went down with a ruptured ACL. Season over, and with him went the last piece of Pep's perfectly constructed puzzle. But here's the thing, losing Rodri wasn't supposed to break them. This was Pep Guardiola, the man who turned Sergio Busquets into a legend, who made Xavi and Iniesta dance to his tune. He'd find a way. He always did. October 30th, 2024, Tottenham away. Carabao Cup 4th round. A meaningless game, really. City lost 2-1, and Pep seemed almost philosophical. I don't like to lose, but I like to see how we behave. The courage, the solidarity. I like it still. Little did anyone know, this was day 1 of the apocalypse, because what followed was unprecedented in Pep Guardiola's career. Bournemouth at home, lost. Sporting Lisbon in the Champions League, lost. Brighton away, lost. Tottenham at home, lost again. 5 games, 5 defeats. The man who never lost more than 3 in a row was watching his empire crumble in real time. But the worst was yet to come. December 3rd, 2024. Feyenoord at home, Champions League. City were cruising 3-0, and for 75 minutes it felt like the nightmare might be over. Then Feyenoord scored, and again, and again. 3-3, the cameras caught everything. Pep Guardiola, the tactical genius who had conquered Europe, literally scratching his head until it bled. His face was pure despair. For the first time in 942 games as a manager, his team had failed to win after leading by 3 goals. The press conferences became painful to watch. "We have 13 players," Pep kept repeating. "We are in real difficulty." This from the man who once said he'd prefer to play with just 11 players all season. The same man who had shipped out Julian Alvarez because he wanted a tighter squad. By January 2025, the reality was undeniable. Liverpool and Arsenal were racing away at the top of the table. Manchester City, the 4-time defending champions, were out of the title race before the winter break. The quintet of genius, Xavi, Iniesta, Busquets, Messi, and Pep, had conquered the world at Barcelona. At City, he thought he'd built something even better. But now watching Rodri's replacement struggle to complete basic passes, one thing became crystal clear. Pep Guardiola had finally met his match, and it wasn't another manager, another team, or another tactical system. It was time itself. Summer 2025, the Etihad boardroom. After the most humiliating season in Pep Guardiola's career, 3rd place in the Premier League, FA Cup final defeat to Crystal Palace, Champions League elimination by Real Madrid, losing their captain, something had to change. The solution seemed obvious: spend, and spend they did. Tijani Reijnders from AC Milan, Ryan Ait-Nouri from Wolves, James Trafford from Burnley, Ryan Cherki from Lyon, the crown jewel, the 21-year-old French magician who inherited the sacred number 10 shirt after Jack Grealish's exit. 6 new faces, £250 million. The narrative was perfect. Pep Guardiola, the master tactician, rebuilding his empire with fresh blood and renewed hunger. "This is a team we're gonna have for the next few years," Pep declared confidently. The man who once preferred squads of 13 players suddenly had too many. "Too much, too many people," he admitted after their opening day demolition of Wolves. "The squad size is not healthy." August 16th, 2025, Wolves away, opening day of the new season. Haaland scored twice, the new signings sparkled, and City cruised to a 4-0 victory. For 90 minutes, it felt like the old days, like the nightmare was over. The media bought it, the fans bought it, even Pep seemed to believe it. Rodri was back in training, looking sharp. Phil Foden was fit again. The pieces were falling back into place, but football has a way of exposing illusions. August 23rd, 2025, the Etihad Stadium, Manchester City versus Tottenham Hotspur, the first real test of Pep's rebuilt machine. 2-0 defeat at home in front of their own fans. James Trafford, the new goalkeeper, gifted Spurs their second goal with a howler that would have embarrassed a Sunday League keeper. The defense looked lost, the midfield was overrun, and suddenly all those new signings looked like strangers wearing City shirts. In the span of 90 minutes, the illusion shattered. The rebuild wasn't a rebuild, it was rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. Pep's post-match interview was telling. The performance was better than the result, but we're waiting for players to click. Still waiting, still hoping, still believing that more time, more training, more tactical tweaks could fix what was fundamentally broken. The truth was becoming undeniable. This wasn't about personnel. This wasn't about injuries or bad luck or referee decisions. This was about Pep Guardiola himself. August 31st, 2025, Brighton and Hove Albion, the Amex Stadium. If there was ever a moment that defined Pep Guardiola's complete psychological breakdown, this was it. For an hour, Manchester City dominated. Erling Haaland marked his 100th Premier League appearance with a goal. The new signings looked settled. Rodri, making his first league start since that ACL injury nearly a year ago, was pulling the strings like old times. Then, the 67th minute, James Milner, 39 years old, a former City player who hadn't scored a goal since 2019, stepped up to take a penalty against his old club. He buried it, bottom corner, no hesitation. What happened next was pure chaos. Brighton, energized by their quadruple substitution, swarmed City's defense like angry wasps. Pep's men, so comfortable just minutes earlier, suddenly looked like strangers. 89th minute, Brajan Gruda, a substitute barely anyone had heard of, raced clear and calmly finished past James Trafford. See, 2-1 Brighton, game over. But it wasn't just the defeat, it was how it happened. City didn't just lose, they forgot how to play football. "We concede a goal, and after that we forget to continue playing," Pep admitted afterward. "You never can stop playing." This was the same man who once made Barcelona pass teams to death. chef who turned tiki-taka into an art form, and now he was watching his players forget the most basic principle of his philosophy: never stop playing. The post-match interviews revealed everything. Rodri, the returning hero, was brutally honest. Some of the mistakes we are doing are kids' mistakes. We are not at the level for a long time. This is our reality. 2 defeats in 3 games. Already, the nightmare hadn't ended. It had evolved. The pattern was unmistakable now. Lead early, look comfortable, then collapse the moment the opposition showed any sign of life. October 2023, Pep Guardiola, calm and composed in his press conference. When you have an absence as important as Rodri, you have to have a solution. When they are not here, we cannot start to cry. The moment in my mind when a player is not there, he's completely out and I don't think about it. Fast forward to December 2024. Same man, different tune. We are playing without the best player, the Ballon d'Or winner. It's like the Chicago Bulls without Michael Jordan. How many did they win after he retired? The transformation was stunning. Pep Guardiola, the master tactician who built his reputation on adapting to any situation, had become completely dependent on one player. Rodri wasn't just important, he was everything. Summer 2025, the rehabilitation videos started appearing on social media. Rodri in the gym, Rodri running, Rodri back on the training ground. The narrative was perfect. The prodigal son returning to save his fallen king. Manchester City fans convinced themselves that September 1st, 2025, the day Rodri made his return to the starting lineup against Brighton, would mark the end of the nightmare. The media bought it. Even Pep seemed to believe it. For 67 minutes at the Amex Stadium, it looked like they were right. Rodri was magnificent. Most touches, most passes completed, most possession regains. The metronome was ticking again. Then James Milner scored that penalty, and everything fell apart. The man who was supposed to be City's savior watched helplessly as his team forgot how to defend, how to press, how to think. In the final 23 minutes, Rodri looked every one of his 29 years. Tired, overwhelmed, human. But here's the uncomfortable truth that nobody wanted to acknowledge. Manchester City's problem started long before Rodri got injured. Remember those statistics? They were conceding 1.3 goals per game in the first 10 games of 2024-25, with Rodri playing in most of them. The defense was already broken. The pressing was already disjointed. The magic was already gone. Rodri's return didn't fix Manchester City because Rodri was never the real problem. He was just the convenient excuse that allowed Pep Guardiola to avoid facing a much more terrifying reality. February 2nd, 2025. Arsenal 5, Manchester City 1. The scoreline was bad enough, but it was Pep's post-match interview that revealed the depth of his despair. I still haven't figured out as to why it hasn't clicked. The heart's there, the passion's there, everyone's got the right intention. We all need to stick together. The heart, the passion, the intentions. Reports suggested the split came after Pep extended his stay in Manchester, allegedly breaking a promise that this would be his final season. Whether true or tabloid fiction, the timing was devastating. Just as his professional life imploded, his personal foundation collapsed too. But the personal turmoil was just one shadow hanging over the Etihad. The 115 charges, Manchester City's ongoing legal battle with the Premier League over alleged financial rule breaches, loomed like a sword of Damocles. Pep and the club had denied everything from day one, but the whispers were getting louder. Point deductions ranging from 60 to 100. Potential relegation not just from the Premier League, but into the lower tiers of English football. These weren't tactical problems anymore. They were existential ones. Behind the scenes, Pep Guardiola's world was crumbling in ways that had nothing to do with football. The man who had built his legacy on perfection was watching it threatened by forces completely beyond his control. At Anfield, Liverpool fans had mocked him with chants about those charges. Pep's response, holding up 6 fingers to show his Premier League titles, felt more desperate than defiant. A hollow echo of Jose Mourinho's infamous 3 Premier League titles rant at Tottenham right before he got sacked. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Mourinho, Pep's oldest rival, had fired back. I won 3, but I won fairly and cleanly. I don't want to win by dealing with 150 cases. Even in defeat, the two men couldn't resist their eternal war of words. But this time, Mourinho held all the cards. The genius who once seemed untouchable was being touched by everything at once. Bad results, personal heartbreak, legal battles, public humiliation. Each blow landed heavier than the last. Football had become secondary to survival. Pep's contract runs until 2027, but whispers suggest he might not make it through this season. The board that once backed him unconditionally is asking uncomfortable questions. questions. The fans who worshipped him are starting to turn. Is this how legends die? Not with glory, but with the slow, agonizing realization that time conquers everyone? Or can the greatest manager of all time pull off one final miracle? We're about to find out, because Pep Guardiola's nightmare isn't over. It's only just begun. Don't forget to hit that like button if you want more brutal breakdowns of football's biggest stories. Hit subscribe and ring that notification bell. Trust me, with the way this season is going, there's going to be plenty more chaos to analyze. Until next time, this has been your deep dive into the madness of modern football.